I have to do what's right. Weed is for the people. It's the people's weed.
Well, hello, scientists. It's 420. This is Osmosis Updates from the Lab. I'm Kevin Berry, your co-host. Let me just check these requests out. Done. We're here today with Sunny Agarwal and
Weed is for the people. It's
some
the people's
validators.
weed.
We should be checking in with Notional, Strangelove of Strangelove Ventures, and perhaps others. We'll be talking about governance, some props, specifically Prop 191 and 199. So, welcome. Let's get into it.
Hello, hello.
Hey, what's up, Sonny? Happy 420.
Happy 420.
We're back with another edition of Updates from the Lab. I think if and when you're ready, we can dive into the updates.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I was thinking about, partaking in 420 activities before this, but decided not to.
Same. Yeah, it just seemed like I don't need to throw another wrench into the into the gears.
But no, so yeah, okay, let's see. To be honest, not too many updates this week. I think mostly, basic stuff, the Stableswap and next upgrade still underway. As mentioned last week, we're targeting more closer to the end of April instead of mid-April like originally planned. Just been some just some unexpected things that we found. So, there's this vesting code from the Evmos code base that we were forking, but then we found bugs in it. So we are currently in the process of fixing those bugs. So that's taking a little bit longer.
That makes sense.
So, but yeah, we'll be so that should be hopefully done by the end of the month. Then we have this new project that we're working on, which I don't know if I mentioned it last time, but it's called Telescope. It's basically a new JavaScript library to just make it much easier to integrate with Osmosis. So it'll make it easier for people to build front ends and stuff, but also just to embed Osmosis functionality into other sites. So you can go to another site and it'll be easy for a project to be add a widget, for example, to be buy your project's token, for example, and it'll do that pretty seamlessly because it'll have this JavaScript library that you can do swaps with one or two lines, basically. So that'll be cool. Then
Nice.
There's also this a couple of things on the info site. People I think may have seen the new calculators that are on there, so that makes it we've huge inspiration from the huge shout out to the Dexmos.app. They've done a really good job at showing a lot of the APR calculations that the main sites don't display right now. So that's been really helpful. But we've been adding some of that functionality to the info site now. So you have this calculator that you can sort of estimate APRs based off of okay, if you stake some of them, it's how many tokens you stake, how many for 14 days, 7 day, or 1 day, what your APRs would be. So that's pretty useful. And the info site also now has a little toggle at the top to display frontier assets versus non-frontier assets. So that way, just bringing it a little bit more in line with the main site as well. And then finally, the last big thing is the bridge vote is going to be going live today, or at least the part one of it. So if people have checked on Commonwealth, basically what's going to happen is there's going to be a proposal going up today for agreeing on the process of doing the vote. So the process, just to go over it again, because it is definitely one of the more complex governance procedures that we've ever done. So it comes down from mostly because of the fact that Cosmos SDK doesn't currently have a good multiple choice voting system, and so what's going to happen is on Friday, all the there's going to be four proposals that go live, or sorry, five, um, four for each of the main bridge options, which are Axelar, Wormhole, Gravity, and Nomad. And then a fifth option for no canonical bridge or other, or just none of the above. And basically what will happen is it'll be an approval voting based system. So what that means is you can vote yes on multiple proposals, and it's sort of which ones do you approve of using, and then whichever one has the highest approval will be selected as the canonical bridge option. But what we're going to do is if the top two choices are within a 15% bound of each other, uh, then it'll go into like a runoff system where those top two will be like pitted head to head, and where you can only pick one or the other. And so that the result of that will basically decide which one gets used. So it's definitely a very complex procedure. So the proposal that's going live today sort of will just help explain that all out in text, and it'll voting yes on that basically is like saying you signal that yes, we agree to use this like approval voting system to decide the bridge. And then so the actual bridge votes themselves will start on Friday.
Okay, that sounds like a good solution, since obviously the multiple choice voting is a ways away.
Mm-hmm.
And I do just want to echo your shout out to Dexmos. I've just used the calculators a little bit, but we are grateful to Dexmos for helping us with these APRs. So it's a good inspiration, and also to StevieWoofWoof for, I know that we were going back and forth on Telegram, and he really devised this whole, in my mind, helped devise this whole system of multiple choice voting through, well, as you described, for deciding a bridge provider. So thank you, Stevie.
Yeah. So yeah. Oh, Jack is requesting to come up. Let me add him up.
Oh, yeah.
So that's where we are.
Oh, hey, sorry I'm running late, Sonny.
I like it.
Oh,
It sounds like
good.
it'll be fun. Interesting test of where we can go within the limited spectrum of options that governance currently gives us. I have an algorithmic solution, but I don't think it works because of foreign denoms. I keep wondering about, like, okay, so you have, let's say, ETH, right? And then ETH is coming from four bridges. Well, one of the price factors would be the quality of the bridge. And then, so like you could have like a meta ETH, but I think you just enter this complexity zone where it's like right now untenable.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think
I definitely think that Sonny's position, where we need one denom for this right now to provide the exact same experience you get in centralized exchanges in order to make the decentralized alternatives as appealing as the centralized alternatives, is exactly the right way here. Cosmos, we have these shorter block times, we have these very fast bridging experiences. That allows us to build user experiences that are unavailable elsewhere in the sort of broader blockchain space. And, doubling down on that smooth user experience is how we're going to bring on the next, 10 million, 100 million people into Cosmos. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of my personal opinion on that.
I think that's fair. Just so everyone knows, we got Jacob Gadikian from Notional, and the last person who sounds like he's trapped in a safe room is Jack from Strangelove Ventures, both longtime contributors to Cosmos, and they run validators. So they just dive right into the bridge voting conundrum. But what we will let's talk more about that. And welcome, gentlemen.
Hey, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry I sound like I'm trapped in a safe room. That's weird.
Well, you sound safe. Okay, that was a joke, but no, it's fine, dude. We can understand. We can understand you, so that's what matters.
Yep.
If you're using your, I know that you have AirPods Max. I've seen you in videos in them. Check this out. They have an occasional sound problem. Turn the Bluetooth on and off, will go away. That's my bet.
Yeah, if you need to do that, go for it. We will absolutely bring you back on the mic.
Is
if need
that
be.
better?
Yes.
Great.
Exactly.
Yes.
You sound like Jack again.
Way better. You were like 15 feet from the mic, and you're like, I'll get a little closer.
Oh, I had them on backwards.
Okay, that was perfect. That's a good way to start the 420 edition of Updates from the Lab.
Cool.
So, so Sonny, what should be our order of operations here now?
I don't know. Where do you want to start for today? To be honest, like I said, I didn't have too much of an agenda today. There weren't too many updates, and just been busy with getting a bunch of stuff done this week. So,
Oh well, Sonny,
wherever you want to start.
Sonny, I have some questions. I hear there's a lending
Okay.
protocol coming to Osmosis, and I saw you tweeting about lending UX.
Yep.
What are some of the patterns that you've seen out there that you're excited about, and can you tease some stuff about the Osmosis lending?
Yeah, sure. So the lending protocol, it's called Isotonic, and what it is so basically, like, there's a lot of design spaces for lending in crypto, right? And I think, like, lending isn't a like one size fits all type of protocol. Like, you can have a lending protocol that's well designed for outputting a stable coin, or you can have a lending protocol that's well designed for, like, permissionless. So the stablecoin would be like something like Mako, or you can have something like Rari, which would be well designed for like permissionless lending pools. Or for Osmosis, being a DEX, we have a specific user or use case, which is leverage trading, and we want to have a lending protocol that is properly well designed for that use case, and also can like integrate very closely with the DEX itself. So, you know, we were like thinking about like, hey, do we build our own internal lending protocol, or do we just plug into other ones? But what we realized after thinking about it more and more was that lending and trading are really just two sides of the same coin. Like, if you want to build a proper DEX, you need to have a unified engine. So, if you look at like centralized exchanges, right? If you look at FTX, which is really sort of like just the gold standard of like trading engines, part of what makes it work so well is just how well integrated their, you know, lending and trading engines are. And when you have these well integrated, you can do things like, staged liquidations like FTX does, or you could do very efficient cross margining. And so that's why we were like, okay, we need to start building a lending protocol to do this. So what we did was we contracted Confio, who was the developers of Cosmwasm, to start building out a lending protocol in Cosmwasm. And the V1 that's going to be launching is honestly a pretty bare bones basic lending protocol. It's it doesn't make it's not super well integrated into the DEX, I would say. But what it is it's sort of very much just a compound clone of sorts, like rewritten in Cosmwasm. But it will, allow us to start building up, like liquidity in the lending in Isotonic, and then we can start iterating and adding more, functionality to Isotonic. one of the ways that it actually does integrate into the DEX pretty seamlessly is that for liquidations, instead of doing liquidations against needing external liquidators like how Compound and Aave and stuff do, it actually allows you to liquidate. It will actually be able to liquidate against the DEX directly. So it will sell against the AMM pools, and it will be able to cap what the borrow rates are based off of like how much liquidity is in the pools themselves. So it kind of, because it has more knowledge about the liquidity of different assets, because it has this like direct integration into the DEX, it will be able to provide more safer bounds than a stateless lending protocol would be able to do. But going forward, I think some of the more advanced integrations that we're going to be focused on is things like letting you use your bonded LP shares as collateral to borrow against. Or another thing would be, we can make it so you can actually have much lower collateralization ratios so if you look at something like Compound today, when you borrow an asset, you can go do whatever the hell you want with that asset. You can go take that asset and, go take it to a different chain or whatever you want. But what we could do is actually something where it's like, if you on a centralized exchange, you usually have two different wallets, right? You have your spot wallet and then you have your margin wallet. And you can't withdraw your margin wallet assets off of the centralized exchange because it acts as a sort of enclosed ecosystem, and but that allows the lending systems on centralized exchanges to be much more efficient. And we can actually mimic that in Osmosis as well, where we could have an option where instead of withdrawing into your account and then you're able to go IBC it anywhere you want, because this lending protocol is really focused on leverage specifically, we could have it so you borrow into a special, smart contract account basically wallet, where what you can do is you can use it for trading and on the AMM, but the protocol still has control over that wallet, so it could liquidate your assets from there if needed as well, and that will just allow uh, you know much lower reserve requirements because the protocol still has liquidation rights over the borrowed assets as well. So, or seizure rights over the borrowed assets as well. So, I think there's a lot of things that we could do when you have this lending protocol built into the DEX to enable much better or more powerful margin trading experiences similar to what you find on centralized exchanges.
Cool. Well, that's really exciting. I think there's a lot of use cases for that with interchain automation as well, especially as we come into this realm of cross-chain smart contracts and in interchain accounts. There's going to be a lot of flash loany type use cases for doing fun stuff on Osmosis. So really, really excited about that, Sunny. I think it's a massive win for the Osmosis community, sort of in a small way, but Cosmos as a whole. There's some options that are available via IBC for lending, but this is kind of the first really core Cosmos one that's come out. So I know a lot of people are stoked about it.
Yeah, should be really cool to see how how the adoption comes about. But and then I think being able to tap into other lend liquidity is going to be an important thing as well, especially with Anchor, for example, right? How can we allow Isotonic to tap into the pool, liquidity pool of that is Anchor, to allow just have access to more assets. So yeah, there's a lot of things we can do to get these many lending protocols to be interoperating a little bit better.
If I extrapolate, did I hear perpetual swaps in that technology stack?
No, there's no perps yet. Perps are pretty different because perps are basically synthetic assets. Here, this is more, more similar to margin trading, which is, you're still dealing with spot assets. There's always spot assets that back everything in the system. So it's not exactly perps.
Gotcha. Is it, or am I just wrong? Because when I heard you go through that, it started. That's like my mind raced there, and I don't know if I actually raced to the right place or not. As something you could build instead of a direct result of what you described.
Sorry, I didn't understand that. What was that?
Oh, so like I kind of jumped to the notion that would become something you could build when you take all the pieces that you just described together.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose I'm cheating a little bit because I've read the GAM wrapper code.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it doesn't mention perpetual swaps, but after you went through your spiel there, I thought, wow, we might be able to build those decentralized. That'd be neat.
Yeah, so I think perpetual swaps. So a margin system is usually combining a spot AMM with a lending system and allowing people to get leverage via borrowing, sell. So how does one get leverage with a margining system? What you do is, let's say you want to lever up on Osmo, right? So what you would do is take your Osmo, put it as deposits in Isotonic, and then use that to borrow UST. And then what you do is you take that US. So now what you have is you have Osmo collateral and debt denominated in UST. You take that UST and you go use it to buy more Osmo. And then now you have more Osmo, but you have debt in UST. So now what you could do though is use that Osmo as collateral again to borrow more UST, and you sell that UST to buy more Osmo. And so you get into this like sort of leverage loop, which basically increases your Osmo position, but increases your UST debt. And so now effectively what that does is you're levered long on Osmo. Perps do it in a very different way. Perps, what they do is they'll also allow you to take leverage, but they do it in a purely synthetic way, basically, where there's no actual Osmo trading hands anywhere here. What would happen in a perp is it's sort of like making a side bet where I want to go long Osmo and you want to go short Osmo. We just sort of agree to pay the difference to each other. And so there's no actual Osmo underlying any of this. So a perp doesn't really make use of a traditional AMM in the same way, because you don't need to trade Osmo for UST. What you would do is, sorry, give me 1 second.
While we're waiting, Jacob, I would not say that you cheated by reading the GAM wrapper code. That's doing the extra credit homework.
Well, as context as it could be considered, just because it gave me a lot of. Actually, look, like when I read through that gave me a ton of ideas for contracts, and
Which is good.
Contracts are like I'm kind of like not smart contract native. I never really worked in ETH, so.
Cool. So what I was saying though was, so the way that perps work is they don't really make use of spot AMMs, but rather they have their own sort of. There have been a couple of people. So normally perps work with order books, and there's been some work in getting like perp AMMs created. So like you can check out. I think the best known one is probably this project called Perp Protocol. And they have they've been working on how to do perp AMMs for a while. But normally, so far, I don't think anyone has fully cracked perp AMMs yet. It's been mostly, perps have mostly been on order books, even indexes, right? So like things like DYDX or injective, or these have been mostly order book based perp systems. So I don't know. I would be very interested in doing more research and like working with a team that, if anyone's interested in building a perp system on top of Osmosis, would be happy to like chat ideas on how to go about it. But yeah, it's definitely very different than the margining system that we're building. Margining I just find to be safer, as well as more. You can do more interesting things with it, in my opinion. So, yeah.
Okay, that was a good summary and compare and contrast with perps and margining. I feel like I still need to do homework on both of those. Jack, did you have any other in your question, and because you referenced Interchain, I think you referenced Interchain accounts. Was there anything else on your mind when you were exploring or asking Sunny to divulge?
Yeah, well, I mean, on the Interchain account stuff, especially, we've just recently updated the Go relayer to support Interchain accounts, and also working with a couple of different teams on Interchain queries as well. And we're sort of looking forward at Strangelove to this time when true composability via IBC becomes sort of broadly enabled throughout the Interchain. And this will, I think that this is kind of the next big technology that we as a broad Cosmos ecosystem need to adopt in order to take that sort of next leg up in growth. And this will enable the exact same type of composability in DeFi Legos type things that we see in Ethereum, where different protocols can permissionlessly use the other ones in this really seamless way. But there's a bit of developer tooling that needs to be built to get there. We're working on a bunch of that over here. But I think that, Osmosis is obviously kind of the first product in Cosmos DeFi, as well as the continued innovation with stuff like loans, stands to benefit most from this sort of growing world of sort of much more deeply interconnected chains. I've been talking about token transfers recently as kind of like the email of IBC. And, email works great. It's really cool. People still use it. But it does not allow the same type of expressibility that something like HTTP does, where you can build these sort of arbitrary protocols on top of it and do much more complex things. And stuff like interchain accounts and interchain queries, which, I think collectively we could call both of those protocols interchain composability, are going to enable much richer interactions. And teams are kind of starting to build for this future. A lot of my conversations recently have been around stuff like that. Obviously, Sommelier has kind of been at the forefront of a lot of this, specifically on the Cosmos to ETH side of things. But yeah, this is kind of where my mind is and why I was asking about the lending.
Nice. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. So if I have your analogy right, is that you're saying that the interchain accounts and queries are emails to HTTP as token trades are to interchain accounts queries?
Yeah.
Composability.
Yeah. So like, what is an email? Email is a so like HTTP is sort of an application query. You can put arbitrary data across the wire using that. With email, SMTP, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, it describes a header and this text body that looks exactly like this, and that's exactly what the token transfer protocol is. The data that goes over the wire for IBC is 4 strings. One string represents the token denomination, one string represents the token amount, one string represents the sending address, and the other represents the receiving address. It's not very flexible. It's a very simple protocol. And in that way, that's why I like to call it email, is because like in email, we were just sending these messages with a title and then a body in them. And there wasn't the ability to do more complex things on top of that.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway.
No, that's good. I mean, we're feel like we're constantly trying to hit IBC from different angles and to the basics of this so people can grasp it, and that I think that is a helpful analogy. Pretty much everyone here has sent an email.
Yeah, and in that same way, I think that the way that we adopted, like, I'm 35, so I'm kind of ancient in this world, but the way that I remember adopting the internet was the first thing I did was send emails to my friends. And then we had kind of instant messenger and then websites. And, we're in this sort of emails phase of IBC where everyone's kind of sending tokens to each other and it's really fun. But these much more complex economic relationships between chains that are really the future and where most of the value from this technology is going to come are going to leverage these new, much more generalized protocols that we're building to recreate the kind of composability that has made DeFi and the Ethereum ecosystem on individual chains so explosive in the growth, because you get these sort of unintended interactions between these different applications. And, if you're building a new chain in Cosmos today, you can look at the different product offerings over on Osmosis and consume those via Interchain accounts and pull data from them via Interchain queries. Seeing Osmosis price data become more of a price oracle that's broadly consumed around the Cosmos, definitely something that I think we see moving forward. Also, the ability for Osmosis to build something like a swap and forward protocol, where you guys could offer an IBC service where if a user wants to end up on a certain chain with tokens to pay gas, that's something that the Osmosis DEX could do, and do it in this kind of transparent way where the user sends one transaction and they don't even know that they're using Osmosis under the hood. All of these use cases are really exciting. And my personal passion is building out the tooling to make this stuff kind of happen. So yeah, that's where my mind's at. Sunny, any of these Interchain use cases that you're stoked about?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of people who are like building, like, for example, there's a project called Quasar, which is building a yield aggregator, where like strategy vaults, kind of like Yearn kind of thing, but like they have their own chain, but then they're able to do these liquidity providing and auto compounding and things on behalf of users on Osmosis. That's like one. Another one there's a project called DTF. It's a decentralized ETF. And so they have their own chain, but then they, to do rebalancing of their ETFs.
Is that different than Defund?
It is Defund. Sorry, it is.
Oh, it is Defund. Okay.
Defund, yeah. So that they're able to then do, like, when they need to rebalance their ETFs, they're able to use an Interchain account to swap the tokens on Osmosis. So yeah, those are some of the examples of like.
People always love that idea of like holding a basket of Cosmos tokens, and I think that product in particular is going to be one that's really, really popular.
Yeah.
Strongly agree. I'm a little obsessed with it myself, actually. I almost love to hear somebody's developing it, but there's now too many projects to even potentially track them all or build all the neat things. So I just encourage the hell out of them. Like, that's a really good one, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if it's because of Easter just happened, but it's reignited my passion, and I've always liked the idea of holding a basket of Cosmos Space tokens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, these are like some of the big things that like having like Interchain accounts really unlocks for Osmosis. Is it allows all these other chains to start doing more automated, currently IBC requires users to send things cross-chain, but Interchain accounts will allow contracts and dApps to do actions cross-chain. And so that I think that will unlock a lot of cool functionality. And then same with like the CosmWasm kind of stuff as well, right? I think. I guess here's another big one that I think will be really big for Interchain accounts. It's it's an idea that we have been sort of brainstorming with the Axelar team, but it basically like allowing a way for people to do instant swaps from like, let's say people want to swap ETH on Ethereum to AVAX on Avalanche. So what it would, but we want them to only have to make a single transaction on Ethereum. They shouldn't have to touch anything in the middle. And so what it would do is, they would send it to an address. It would be picked up by Axelar. But then what Axelar would do is it would be able to use an Interchain account to do a swap on Osmosis from ETH to AVAX, and then it back to Axelar, and then forward it on to the destination on Avalanche. So this will, basically by allowing something like Axelar to use Interchain accounts with Osmosis, we can have this like, much more seamless, a very seamless UX there. So that's like another kind of really cool use case of Interchain accounts.
Sunny,
That's a super impressive second order effect.
Working on some other stuff with the Axelar team, and I think I shot you a DM about this, so would love to sync with you and your team about this. But Strangelove wants to build some front ends for stuff like that.
Cool.
Just want a little feedback there. But also, one thing that I do want to pimp is we're working on this IBC test framework to test really complex cross-chain flows like this, where, what Sunny is describing there, you're going from the Ethereum main chain onto the Axelar chain. The Axelar chain is then utilizing Interchain accounts to trade on your behalf on Osmosis, and then it's moving through Axelar over to Ava. That is a really complex distributed system that touches a number of different pieces, and you need tooling to be able to simulate systems like this. So this is, we've been building this at Strangelove. It's called the IBC testing framework. Right now, it's the ability to spin up sort of any number of different Cosmos chains based on any of the binaries that exist within the chain registry and test different IBC flows between those chains. I think we're going to be working on adding support for Ethereum-based chains to support some use cases at Sommelier there. But this tooling is one of those things that's going to need to come a lot further in order to support the applications that we're building now, and we're working hard on that at Strangelove right now.
Yeah, a lot of this seemed like a pipe dream in 2017, I must say. Like just swapping between ETH, just atomic swaps and stuff. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, just to double down on that there, I remember the first conversation I had with Sunny was in like 2018, and he's like, yeah, we're going to have IBC, and we're going to have all these peg zones. And I was like, hold up, have we shipped a blockchain yet? So yeah, I remember deeply how much of a pipe dream that felt like, and it's really cool to be here now and to be able to talk about all the really cool fun stuff.
Yeah, these things take time, which is why it's okay if we have a slightly slow updates week. It's like building things that work well using good technology from the ground up. Like it's been working. It's just it's taken time. I feel like, just so I understand this, this is a really smooth brain question, but that swap that you mentioned, the instant swap, Sunny, it was from swapping ETH for AVAX, and then you would end up with AVAX in what? An Ethereum wallet?
In an Avalanche wallet.
In an Avalanche wallet. Ah, okay.
Yeah, so, it's sort of the original dream of Shapeshift for all of those folks who were in crypto in the sort of 2014, 2015, 2016 era. You may remember Shapeshift. And on Shapeshift, you would go from one chain to assets on another chain directly through their pipes. And I remember the first time I used it, it felt like magic. And I feel like most of the IBC work has basically been rebuilding Shapeshift in some ways. But yeah, with Osmosis is the settlement layer there.
Yeah, I guess one way, if like people are familiar with it, like it's very similar to like the UX that Thorchain has been trying to provide, right? In Thorchain, they have this whole like thing where like you don't make a transaction on Thorchain. If you want to swap Bitcoin to ETH, it just you just send your Bitcoin to and then it will like show up on your ETH wallet, right? So kind of mimicking a lot of that UX basically is what we're trying to do, but like make it so it's not I think by splitting it out between like the work between like by Osmosis focusing on like getting the DEX side right, and then Axelar is focusing on getting the bridging side right. I think that will just provide a better I think we can move faster than something like Thorchain.
Nice. I feel like we had shouted out a couple of props. I don't want to stop the momentum here. So if you guys want to keep with this, and a number of people have also requested to speak. We heard from Diesel. Shall we dip into some of these proposals?
I'd love to show 191 or 191 like concepts.
Okay, I think that's fair. Let's dive into 191.
Well, I mean, so first of all, I should say that I actually voted no on 191 initially, and then Dave from the Osmosis team kind of like walked me through the intended effect, which is a little hard to grasp at first. I had put on Commonwealth a while back, like various just sort of spitballing ideas around how to increase validator compensation at the lower end of the set. And what I didn't realize at first was that 191 does not just address that, it kind of gets at the root causes. So that basically 191 proposed that every validator would have an additional 20 Osmo distributed through them to their delegators. And so like the effect of this would have been, yep. What's that?
Hey, Jacob, can you redo your last sentence? I'm not sure if I just lost connection or if you did.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure thing. So 191 proposed distributing an additional 20 Osmo per validator to delegators with the usual validator commission in place and some kind of a modifier at the midpoint, which I must say I did not fully understand. But the effect was really cool because right now, people who delegate to low-ranked validators take a lot more risk to support decentralization. That's because the validators can easily fall out of the set and like you lose your earnings on that. Like for example, right now I'm delegated to PB Cups. I saw him here earlier, and he has fallen out of the set. And I'm actually going to keep my delegation with him. I know that he intends to, continue to campaign and re-enter. But like basically, those delegations to validators who are in that like riskiest position actually should be priced higher for that reason. And so like when I thought about it, because some people said, well, that's kind of commie, right? Or like kind of socialist, just redistributing. But it preserves the market function very well and then appropriately prices risk. And in every well-functioning market, risk is priced in.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, look, I mean, the point of a blockchain is to have some sort of like decentralized guarantees, and I think it's makes sense for a blockchain to pay for more decentralization, right? Like, if we currently are in a world where one validator controls 12% of the network, and that's potentially harmful to the entire purpose of a blockchain. We give staking rewards to validators to have a decentralized system. And so if we think that the system is not decentralized enough, we should be making changes to make sure we can get more decentralization, basically.
Yeah, totally. It seemed like it kind of more fully utilizes Tendermint consensus too, because I'll just sort of throw to the audience, in Tendermint consensus, I'd say the upper bound is probably 500 validators that you could do like equally weighted. But since they are differentially weighted, and there are real financial incentives like risk to delegate to the top, people sensibly do so. So pricing in that risk of delegating toward the bottom is very likely to result in additional decentralization. And I thought the solution was super elegant.
So, just so I'm clear, so the thesis behind Prop 191 to incentivize decentralization more, it still stands and will be brought back in a new proposal?
I would like to. I'm trying to figure out how to word it correctly. And then also, I don't know if you noticed that I got like a little hand wavy there. I got hand wavy about the part in 191 where it describes making some kind of a modification at the midpoint. And so I'm also trying to, like, first of all, understand what code might look like for the original 191 proposal. And
Right.
then secondly, figure out if there should or should not be some kind of a simplification to it so it's easier to understand.
If I understand correctly, Thorchain already has that. So maybe
They're in the matrix, or I'm going to blame Amazon Web Services again. But I'm trying to find the gentleman who was talking. Anyway, we were discussing
Oh, it was
proposal.
the guy who said that Thorchain had
Yes.
already implemented something like 191.
Yes. So wait, I'm adding some people requests here. Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, we can ladder off that. We're talking about Thorchain and Prop 191.
I don't know too much about Thorchain.
Neither do
To my
I.
understanding, it's like Tendermint chain, but not IBC compatible. Maybe I'm not certain there.
Yeah, so Thorchain, I guess like in context. So by the way, sorry about that. I have my new apartment does not have Wi-Fi yet, so I'm tethering from one phone onto another, and I think I just stepped a bit too far.
Fair enough.
But the so Thorchain, when it comes to staking, they have a very different way of doing staking from like most Cosmos chains. So they don't really actually have a concept of like delegation and things like that. So what they only do is they only have like, every validator has to provide their own stake, and it has to, all the validators are equal weight because there's like, a minimum amount of stake that you need in order to become a validator, and then if you have more than that, then you're supposed to run a separate validator. So their entire sort of model of staking is very different. Now, arguably, it's more like proof of stake, but it's like similar to the Ethereum model as well, right? Where what happens is you have, every 32 ETH, you run a new validator node, and if you have like 64 ETH, you're supposed to run 2 validator nodes, but there's no like in protocol like notion of delegation. Now, what we've obviously seen happen on Ethereum is if you don't build in protocol delegation, people end up building out of protocol delegation, and you have things like Lido, which end up dominating the ecosystem. And so, but yeah, that's why like I think the Terra model, this entire staking model, is just quite different. So it's hard to I mean, there's probably things to learn from it, but it's hard to make direct. You know, things work very differently there.
Well, I guess I would just say, I mean, in the spirit of what Jacob was talking about, as long as you're cool with it, I would welcome anybody's input on how to simplify a reversion of Prop 191. Maybe we can hop into one of the Telegram channels like Siberia or Osmosis Ion Governance and help iron it out. I think perhaps other people can help if you
I
can, if
love
you have
that.
ideas.
I'm interested in actually like what I actually thought about it was I felt like 191 really only suffered from vague wording and likely otherwise would have passed. I'm thinking about like trying to implement it and then proposing it. Um, just sort of that way for people who can read the code, it should be hopefully extremely clear how it ends up working.
Yeah, I think that just the making it clear to people how this redistribution will, I think an example of how this redistribution will work, if we can put it in like a visual diagram, possibly, that I know would help for many people.
Actually, one thing I should say is that one of the things that I liked about 191 that turned me into a really, really big fan of its concept is that it is not a distribution. So what it is, it's a
Right.
protocol level modification that, in my opinion, provides for risk pricing when you're delegating to lower ranked validators. That was like, when I got it, it was like, oh my God, what it's doing is it's accounting for all the risk taken by delegators to, frankly, like very fresh validators, right? Like, the gentleman
Right.
PB Cups, who just fell out of the set that I'm delegating to. He's very new, and yeah, they can totally make mistakes. And furthermore, just because there is that cliff there, there's also additional economic risk.
Right. Yeah, I guess that's a good point. I said the word redistribution, which I know is a trigger for people, but if it's at a protocol level and it's risk based to make it, less risky to decentralize your stake. I mean, we've been talking about this, I think, from the very beginning, the very early days of Osmosis, of like the importance of that. When I don't remember which prop number it was that popped up to redistribute the entire strategic fund to all validators. There's like reasons why we don't want to concentrate too much power and whatever. I don't have to explain that, but I'm gonna answer a request here.
Actually, you just touched on one of my very favorite points of Osmosis. Please do answer the speaker request, but the fact that the entire team compensation is a governance parameter mutable thing
it's
is
pretty
just
awesome.
like, oh, well, that was brave, and I applaud that.
Yeah, well played to the Osmosis team developers. So I've added some people who requested. If you have questions, now's a great time to chime in. I'm going to take a moment to just a nod to Proposal 199, which did pass and has formalized the usage of Commonwealth for governance. Thank you for putting that up. I believe that was Jacob. And I just think it's important that we talk about this so people don't overlook it and get penalized. That, putting your pre-proposal up on Commonwealth for at least 3 days, if I'm not mistaken, is now a norm. Do I have that correct?
Hey, I apologize. I caught only the end of that. You mentioned
That's okay.
the mandatory
Pre-governance.
And you know
Yeah.
what? That comes from me screwing up, sort of.
Mm.
So we had a social convention that proposals should be discussed on Commonwealth, and I violated it. Because I thought I saw something like really wrong, wanted to jump into. So I just went and immediately, took action on it, and luckily, I mean, I think at the end of the day, the effect I described was occurring, but they were willing to turn down the incentive, and so 188, I ended up voting no on that. But like, yeah, I'm glad it's there because it'll create some hard and fast standard there.
Yeah, and I think in the past when we've had proposals come up, and I do invite anyone else here who's been added to chime in, but when we have had proposals come up where it felt like, wait a second, we don't think the people that are putting this up really understand or have talked to the community, because if they had, they would either not do this or they would word it differently, or it would be a conversation first. And so I appreciate the principle set up in Prop 199, and I hope that I want people to understand, who are making proposals, to understand why it's there, and that it's important that we have that discussion pre-voting in Commonwealth, on Commonwealth.
I have two questions for Sunny. One is on 191, and the other is on margin that he talked about earlier. On 191, have you looked at what Thor Protocol already has on their flat validator rewards? And maybe their wording might be helpful.
So I actually have not looked at it, but I think that's something we definitely should look at. Like, Jacob, if you're going to rewrite 191 or something, maybe take a look at like how Thorchain phrases things to make it more, explaining it a little better.
And I don't know if it's maybe it's not smart, but I always thought, like, why not subvert or invert the list of the validators so that the bottom validators show up at the top? So just turn it upside down, because when the newcomers come in, they're usually not as informed, or they're just going to kind of go to the top 10. And so maybe that's dangerous because they're not as robust, maybe. But it like, I see all the people that I'm kind of teaching all these basic, like literally just coming onto crypto world. They just go on and click. They look at like first top 5 or first top 10, and that's it. Like, they don't put the effort to go down the list. So that may be something to think about on that. Equality of validator rewarding.
I think that's a good UX observation, as someone who you're helping people.
Is it okay?
Hey, Nick.
Is it okay if I just add something really quick to what Lucian is saying?
Yeah, sure.
The process you're describing is actually called the preferential attachment process, and it's very well documented in the relevant psychological literature. And in fact, if you do apply a UX change like that, it's highly likely that centralization based on voting power among top validators will decrease rapidly. However, you need to add another metric. It's a rather simplistic way that humans look at this, because decentralization is complicated and we don't really think about a lot. And so it's very easy for them. And if you really want to make an impact with such a soft measure, because it is a soft measure, it's not a protocol level change, it's quite literally a UX change, just give them another option. Perhaps it's a proof of contribution to system integrity option. Perhaps it's their levels of social engagement within the community. But that is a very well documented process, and you're thinking in a very clear and in a very well researched manner. And so, if you are interested in pursuing something like that, I believe it's actually very fruitful, and you should.
Yeah, I think this definitely makes sense. I think this is something I think the Kepler team is thinking about doing on their front end. Obviously, one of the challenges is getting it so all the interfaces implement this. I saw OmniFlix they're one of the more popular staking interfaces as well. But I mean, to be honest, one of the challenges, of course, though, is that we can't control every staking interface, and currently Cosmos Station is. Cosmos Station is one of the best contributors to the ecosystem. They've built I think the best explorer in all of crypto, and like, you know, their wallet is one of the most popular interfaces for Osmosis. But that obviously, you know, they're obviously by it. Part of the reason Cosmos Station became the biggest validator on Osmosis is that they, you know, display their validator like as the number one option on their Cosmos Station wallet. And, you know, I mean, I think that makes sense because that's like how sort of they monetize. You know, they've gotten a lot of users for Osmosis via the Cosmos Station wallet, and then they direct them to be delegators to their validator. So basically, my point, my claim is generally like, yes, I think that, like, you know, especially for things like Kepler and stuff, we should be trying to maybe make it more distributed. But I think the UI level stuff needs to also still be paired with protocol level incentives as well.
May I just ask a bit of a futuristic question? This
Yeah.
is
Go for it.
This is with respect to network decentralization, and specifically, I'm interested in if you'd be interested in pursuing a way of automating decentralization, but also making decentralization provable. Naturally, this has limitations because you can't just redelegate based on some saturation metric, but the technology to make this possible is already here. It already exists, and if a person has a wallet and he needs to delegate or he wants to delegate for some reason, then that wallet can have an agent or an AI or really a script, but I suppose a narrow AI will do the job better. And that AI can follow a policy, or it can follow an objective function to maximize returns, taking into account risk, for example, the risk of a fresh validator, or the risk of a validator who perhaps doesn't run a sentry setup. And so I'm curious if you'd be interested in exploring ways to essentially delegate network decentralization to an AI. And that AI can have limitations, and it should have limitations, but it also can maximize return and can maximize network decentralization at the same time. And it's never going to be perfect. You're never going to get a perfect voting power split. There's always going to be movement. But I suppose that's what true decentralization looks like. It's movement, but never too much in any extreme. So I'm curious if you'd be interested in exploring such an option in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the problem with an AI, I mean, it's hard to. I don't fully understand what the target objective of the AI would be. Would it just be to decentralize the distribution as much as possible? And if so, I mean, I feel there's simple algorithms that can be done for that than you know, an AI. Maybe you're calling that an AI. But one of the things is, like, you know, I think one thing that I would want to do earlier than that is more like having social sets. So like having a system where people declare their validators on chain, which is something we've been like working on for a while. It's actually, we almost had the code done, but we never pushed it for some reason. Just got other things got prioritized. But like and then like people can have like validator set recommendation. So it could be like, oh, it's a one-click button to delegate to all the active relayer validators, or it could be a one-click button to delegate to, you know, this geographically distributed like set of validators, or is one click to delegate evenly to all the 118 validators. So having like these, like, you know, lower the cognitive hurdle for one. I think one thing we want to do is like encourage people to be delegating to more validators, because currently today most people delegate to one validator because it's a lot of work to delegate to multiple validators. You have to go like do a bunch of clicks per validator each time.
Yep.
Making that like a one-click process, I think, would definitely go a long way.
Yeah, I think a single decentralized button is maybe too simplified, but I like the way you're thinking about it, Sonny, because it can be a lot if you have to keep going and claiming from many validators. But Nico, I just want to say appreciate your thoughts on this and your questions, and it's something that I'd have to grok more. For me, the AI just would not be able, it couldn't be allowed to have its own validator because then I just wouldn't trust it. But but other than that, yeah, I'd have to grok this.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. And the AI is really just, it's a way of selecting the best delegator, the best validator among existing validators. It's really not going to be, it's not going to have its own node of any kind. It's really just a simple algorithm that takes a look at the voting power spread and then makes a decision based on the voting power spread. And obviously the voting power spread is, it's a rather crude metric, a rather simple metric. You'd have to apply a sort of rigor to really make it work. But I think there's an interesting idea here, because if you can delegate the entire process to an AI, and this is a very narrow process, right? It's really just a matter of selecting a validator against some set of validators that does not, and once it selects the validator, it needs to make sure that it's not overreaching. It's not delegating to a validator that already has so much voting power. And so that's really it's a crude idea, I suppose, but I was just really curious if you'd be interested in that sort of futuristic discussion. And thank you very much. I'd really love to hear other questions, so I'm going to shut up now and give you the word.
Okay, good one. And yeah, I also like the idea of bringing in that other factor of that you mentioned.
I have a question.
Oh yeah, please.
Okay, good.
Hi, Chloe.
Hey, good evening. How are you guys doing?
So far, so good.
Yeah,
What's on your mind?
Okay, good. Obviously, I missed the other part of the conversation. I think I should be more, on top of the news, so I know what time you start, so I can know exactly what you've been talking about.
Yeah, it's
anyway.
It's 1 p.m. Eastern. I can't do the UTC math, but I think is that 6 p.m. UTC, but it's 1 p.m. Eastern Eastern time every Wednesday.
Every Wednesday. Okay, good. Okay, every Wednesday. Awesome. Every Wednesday. Okay, yeah, because I'm every Wednesday 6 p.m. The central time. So
yes, I think that's correct.
Yeah, I have a work call every Wednesday at 6 o'clock. I think that's why.
Okay,
that makes sense. Anyway,
so what's on your mind?
Okay, so what's on my mind? So I'm Chloe. I'm belong to a big yield farming organization. So it's one of the biggest, and the platform is very well connected. So as I said, it's one of the biggest. It is the biggest, and we doing a lot of. We are yield farming educational organization, and we invite a lot of the bigger protocols like Layer 0 and NFT.com and Phantom Foundation. We have a lot of those levels people over. So I would love to invite, for example, Sonny and yourself, Kevin, for like AMA if you have time. That'd be great, because this way it's gonna be beneficial for you, because our clients are all really the difference between of course, I mean, we are all different. That's the beauty of it. We are all different. That makes the world interesting. However, the mindset, I think, is important. How you think defines what you achieve in life, right?
So can you maybe message us offline? Let's keep these questions more that are relevant to everyone. But yeah, so feel free to message either Kevin or Eddie offline, and we can discuss it.
Beautiful.
Yep.
Okay, we'll do that.
Thanks, Chloe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I had a quick question about Isotonic. So for as far as like lending and borrowing, like, is there going to be a way to subsidize that because of the risk they're taking? Like, will there be a token, or will Osmosis inflation be used?
Yeah, so I think that for now we should we're just gonna use Osmo for it. The question of new token or not, I don't know. I think for now we're punting on it and just saying like, okay, let's focus on, making this like part of Osmosis, like as a core piece, right? And like Osmo is the governance of this new lending protocol to start with. Maybe in the future, Osmo decides to, maybe they vote to split it off into a new token or something. But I think for now, we'd probably just have it. Osmo like gets to vote for, and then we'll put Osmo incentives on it. So yeah, a portion of Osmosis incentives would have to be diverted towards Isotonic deposits. My general take is that incentivizing borrowing is kind of silly. I feel you should only be incentivizing lending, not incentivizing borrowing. And then when it comes to lending, I think really the big thing that we should be really thinking about is just mostly focused on incentivizing stablecoin lending, because if you assume that there's a net long demand in general, which there generally, like for most of the time there is, if people want to long, they will bring in, let's say, Osmo as collateral, and then to borrow stable coins. And then people who want to go short, they can go and borrow that Osmo that the longers use as collateral. And so really, I think the chicken and egg, which comes first is, I think if you can solve the initial stablecoin deposits, then the rest of it will be more likely to work out. And then, if we find that there's a need to incentivize deposits of other assets other than stablecoins, that could work well. We could do that as well. But I think starting with the stablecoins initially is important. One of the big, challenges is we need to, especially when it comes to UST. I think I tweeted about this. Is like, you got to beat Anchor, right? Like I think the Anchor return rates have been really great for boosting the
Yep.
Terra awareness and adoption, but it also makes things a little bit harder to build with UST, because anything that wants to get UST deposits now has to beat the Anchor APRs. And so we've been talking about this with the Terra team and stuff, and so they're open to also putting some incentives on UST, some of their incentives on UST deposits into Isotonic, and then so really that combined with us focusing Osmo incentives onto UST deposits, I hope that can help build up the stablecoin liquidity there.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, it's like an interesting trade-off whether you want Osmo to continue to be like the token used for everything, or whether you introduce a new one. But it's probably smart to start off with that. It's a good idea.
I think you leave more room for flexibility by once you launch a token, there's no turning back. And so I think while we're still figuring it all out, I think leaving maximum optionality is good.
Awesome, thanks. Very excited.
Thanks for the question, Diesel. That was well thought out. Sonny, I had one this is from Reddit. Mark, he said, I think it would be this is more of a statement than a question. I think it would be a good idea to add a standard exit fee on all and use those fees to increase APRs. May help increase TVL. Any thoughts on that?
An exit fee on what? On exiting?
I think it's on all pools. This is what I'm presuming.
Yeah, the balancer pools actually have an exit fee already. The pools already have an option for an exit fee. We've just been encouraging everyone to put it at 0. The exit fee was originally a way of incentivizing sticky liquidity, but I think the bonding incentives for bonding LPs, bonded liquidity, ended up being a much better lever for that. And I think exit fee
Mhm.
is just like, not the greatest UX in my opinion. Just this
Yeah.
I don't think it'll meaningfully boost APRs that much, and we left the feature there, but we actually even removed the option to. I believe in the UI you can't really, if you're creating a new pool from the UI, it doesn't have an option to set the exit fee if you want, but you could do it from the CLI or something. We left it in because there might be a use case for exit fees at some point, but right now we don't see if there's that strong of a use case right now.
Okay, I think that's fair. I definitely could see it leaving a bit of a bad taste.
Yeah.
And the bonding curves are good. I'm Marty. I see your hand is up. Welcome.
Good afternoon. So Jacob, or the LSD Fox of late, was was a great help in helping Cosmos Spaces get its validator up. So we certainly thank him for that. And he brought up in one conversation, 191, and I told him that I didn't remember it, and so I went back and looked at it, and I realized why I didn't remember it is because I read the quote unquote pros, and honestly, I didn't understand it after reading it twice. I mean, I think the pros, needs, a bit of help, a little bit more description there. Just kind of a comment. But so, second issue is the pool, the 4 pool that you guys are doing. Do you really feel like you have to be competitive with Anchor if you're kind of marketing is a bad word, but positioning it as something that is, broader and maybe more conservative as a, basically stable, investment? Obviously it's not just UST, it's a whole bunch of other things, which is exciting to other people. So just kind of a question.
Yeah, I mean, so it depends on whether we're trying to get just UST deposits or not. And if you're trying to get a lot of UST deposits, if you have UST and you're deciding where to put it, it's hard to. I don't know. I guess a lending protocol is more risky than a stable swap potentially. But it's not clear that a lending Isotonic is less risky than Anchor, for example. But one of the things that we should think about is how can we have the stable swap and lending protocol sort of together. So if you're in the stable swap, basically have the stable swap pool also basically providing liquidity to Anchor as to Isotonic as well. So that way you're double, you're earning from both the stable swap returns as well as the Isotonic returns that are being borrowed. So I don't know. There's definitely some thought that needs to be put into this, though.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good question, Marty. Thank you. Do we have any more questions? I know somebody direct messaged me asking about another update on Ion. I presume that they're still working on the V2 of DAO.
Jake was here a little while ago. I don't know if he's still here in the thing anymore, but I know he was. I just saw a demo of the front end yesterday, so I think it's coming along pretty well.
Awesome. Yeah, Jake, if you are here, please speak up.
Yeah.
I see
let's
Rami.
go with Rami and Lucian, and then I think I have to jump off in 8 minutes.
Okay. Sounds good. Rami, what's up?
Yeah. Hey, guys, what's up? First off, a while back, I was talking to some of the guys that used to be on the Tendermint team in 2021 on Clubhouse, and I was like, there's no way this IBC thing is going to launch. Sonny, you were there. I am so happy that I was wrong. Congrats to you all. It's great for the ecosystem. My question is generally on bridges. I know you guys are looking at Axelar and a couple others. Do you view this as an intermediary sort of thing, or do you think the current concept of bridges as they are, which basically a lot of them are very similar? You know what I'm saying? Is this a
Hmm.
stepping stone? Is this Plasma what Plasma was to Ethereum? Or,
Hmm.
you know, like that's kind of my general question. I think you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think long term, bespoke bridges are a temporary thing until we get proper IBC into everything. Um, IBC is much more secure than these other systems because they have like full on-chain light clients of other chains. The problem is on-chain light clients are hard to write. Like some protocols don't even, I don't even know how to write a light client for, like something like Solana, because it doesn't do Merkle proofs. And so, writing a light client for that is actually a challenge. And so, there are people working on IBC for Solana actually, but like it's just the overhead on this is much higher. And so it's just been easier to just go with the hacky solution, which is bespoke bridges. So, but I think that like the bespoke bridges are a temporary solution until we get IBC into everything, which could be a while. So that's why it's important that like, even with when choosing bespoke bridges, you still like, we still choose. There's still a spectrum on bespoke bridges. You have certain bridges that are 2 of 2 multi-sigs, and then you have some that are like proof of stake based like validator systems, and then you have some that are like like Nomad, which is a very different design style than the others. So yeah, I think these are temporary though.
Great. And can I get a 1-sentence thought on layer 0? Good, bad, middle?
I think that like, layer 0's bridge design is not the most inspiring, where it's like it effectively right now is a 2 of 2 multi-sig. What I do like about layer 0 is that I've been going around encouraging all these bridges to be like, hey, why don't we all use common data formats, and like so that way they're all the bridges are still relatively interoperable. And so layer 0 was sort of the first to bite on that. So I'm really happy that they're doing that, and like hopefully more bridges follow suit where we can get more bridges using these like ICS data standards. But yeah, otherwise, I think that there's still a lot to be seen on like how layer 0, actually gets itself to be more decentralized.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Rami. Lucian, are you still there with the question?
Yes. Sonny, do you have legal and financial people working with you on your margin trading efforts?
We have, we have a lot of, we have different lawyers that help, advise us on different things. What do you mean by financial people?
Oh, people that are traditional, studying macro and just financial. With specific to like margin trading, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Not really. I don't think we have people with a very more TradFi background on that.
If you wish, I have stuff that I could offer if you want to reach out to me later.
Sure.
In 2017, I became a whale without me knowing it on Kraken. This was like I had some ETH that I was holding on my treasury for my education fund, and it was like for fellowship giving out grants to like designers and creators, because I'm trying to make the creative economy come to life, and this is a great thing. But I had apparently held more ETH than the whole daily volume, 24-hour volume of Kraken in 2017. And I got there because of margin trading, right? So I was giving them, I think, roughly around like $75,000 a month in fees because I had that much volume. And so you guys remember the flash crash of 2017?
Yes, I remember it.
Oh, that sounds painful. Yeah, so I went through that both on Kraken and Coinbase, and you find out the true color of character of these guys, Brian Armstrong and Jesse Powell. And so Brian decided to return right away, if you guys recall. And Jesse, on the other hand, I had to deal with him for 2 years. And I found out what kind of person he was. like over a few $1 million, he became a totally a bad person, I'll just say. And he's obviously the captain of the central finance and all that stuff. So, yeah. So if you want to reach out to me later, I could give you my 2 years of legal ordeal. But a year of margin trading on Kraken experience and how it could go terribly, terribly wrong. So I don't recommend people get into that. So I do like when you say we should be rewarding lenders, not borrowers. But margin trading is essentially borrowing. So maybe I would like to hear your comment on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll swing by you our like ideas on how to do like new types of leverage that we're. I've shared it a couple of times on the past spaces, but yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts on them. Cool.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks,
Well,
everyone. I actually have to jump off onto another call right now, but yeah. So thank you guys for joining, though.
Have a nice rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you, Sonny. Thanks for being here. Have a great rest of your 420, everybody. And we'll be back next Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. UTC, if I have that correct. And thanks, everybody.
Thanks for hosting, Kevin. See you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Thank
Till
you
next
as
time.
well.
Thank you.
Have
Thanks
fun.
for all the great questions. Cheers.
Later, guys.
People's weed.